Hey, Logan Christopher here with the Legendary Strength Podcast. We're going to be picking up where we left off last week with my brother, Zane Christopher, and our talk about barefoot running.
Okay, excellent. So the whole foot care thing, you mentioned that once you learn the proper technique, then you stopped having blisters and everything. Are your feet like just as tough as nails now? I know a lot of people might want to shy away because they don't want to have like very crusty or dried, flaky skin or something. Is that something that occurs with the barefoot running? Could you talk about that?
Okay, yeah. Common question. What do your feet look like? They must be super callous and stuff. My feet are actually pretty smooth. There's no calluses on them at all. And everyone I show them to is usually surprised that they look that way. And part of the thing about that is I run on trails, and I think it's really good to run on trails because that really toughens your feet up. Mm-hmm. And obviously you're not going to do that right away, but the sooner you can do trails and eventually trails with gravel and larger rocks and stuff, the better. But then running on the street, which I think is also important, especially if you ever plan on doing races, because most races are on the street. The street actually kind of works to file down the calluses. So your feet should be pretty smooth. If you do have calluses and if you do get blisters, that means your form is not correct. You're not running right. This guy has a great way to tell if you have perfect form, and that's to wear socks, a pair of socks, and do a marathon in a pair of socks. And if there's no holes at the end of the marathon, you have perfect form.
That makes sense, because if you're overusing a certain portion of your foot, like maybe just the point near the big toe, then there's going to be a lot more stress on there. That's going to build up the calluses or the blisters. It would definitely wear through a pair of socks. So that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Have you tried that yourself?
It's a good one. No, I haven't tried that. And I mainly because of he's like doing a marathon, and but yeah, that would be an actual good way to see where your weak points are. One of the things that happens to a lot of people is they get blisters on their toes. I did. My friend, she's pretty decent barefootist now, probably the best I know of. But she gets blisters on her toes. She has long toes, and I think that can actually be a downside to barefoot running. But the only real way to limit that is if you are getting blisters on your toes and stuff, you need to actually think about lifting your toes up a little. Not like so much where your foot is going to get sore from the continual lifting of your toes, but your toes don't really need to be hitting so much. At least until you know what you're doing, they don't need to be hitting so much. And if I feel any hot spots in my toes, I will consciously lift them, and that will prevent a lot of toe blisters.
Okay. And do you do anything as far as like actually, massaging or using a pumice stone or anything to take care of the feet, different lotions? What do you do?
One good way to massage the feet in case of soreness and stuff is a golf ball, and just putting it on the ground and rolling it around under you. I use a pumice stone on my feet in the shower after I run because your feet get ridiculously dirty, and I find that's the best way to actually clean them. Again, I'm not really using it for calluses or anything like that because my feet just don't develop calluses anymore from that. The other thing is they're like, how do you do that? Like you said before, and my skin is a lot thicker, but it's not callous. It feels a little leathery and stuff like that. And a lot of times when I run now, it feels like I'm wearing shoes because I don't feel a lot of the stuff. And yeah, so that you just that just builds up. You have to take the time to build that up.
Right. I mean, the body adapts to anything, so if you put it through that, it's going to develop tougher skin rather than having it in this nice, comfortable cast of our lives where we never encounter anything that, will touch the skin down there.
Yeah, and you can't, then a lot of people are like, well, isn't that painful? Probably the biggest question I always get, doesn't it hurt to barefoot run? Yes, but it's not like constantly pain the whole time you're doing it. You're going to step on stuff. It's inevitable. It's going to hurt when you step on stuff. You'll step on a sharp rock. The feet are designed to take that, actually. But one of the techniques to lessen the pain is when you land, you're like putting your whole foot down and allowing it to spread. You think of it like spreading out over the surface. And if the surface area is concentrated, like if you land on your forefoot and it's just that, your forefoot, and you step on a rock and it's all that weight going into it, it's going to hurt a lot. But if you have your whole foot come down and it spreads out over the rock and stuff like they're designed to do, it's actually going to minimize, because the surface area is going to be so much bigger, it spreads out the force. Mm-hmm. And horse hooves do that too. When they don't have a horseshoe on them, they've found that a lot of horse injuries go away because they're basically barefoot, and their hooves work as shock absorbers, so they actually spread out when they touch the ground and then contract back up when they lift off, and that minimizes rocks and stuff from damaging the hooves. And humans do the same thing. It's kind of like a pump, and it actually gets your blood moving too. It's in some Chinese medicine stuff, a guy said you should walk like a pigeon to get that pump flowing, which is moving the whole body and getting the blood circulating, and it's really healthy for you. And one of the things I always considered was really good is the foot pump gets your blood flowing too.
You also, I've heard before, another benefit from the barefoot is when you're stepping on things, those little rocks, if you just think about reflexology, there's points and different things all within your foot that correspond to the rest of your body, and people pay, hundreds of dollars for a reflexology massage, but those little rocks, they're actually going to be, it's going to be chaotic and not targeted or anything, but if you're doing it, you're going to get some of those benefits at the same time because like you said, the foot is really meant to be able to take these things. And it may be slightly painful when you begin, but once you're used to it, I think there's some significant health benefits that could come from it as well.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And there's also, about, I don't know if you've done the show on being grounded.
I don't think I've done a show on it, but definitely have mentioned it. So, yeah, that's absolutely another effect.
Yeah. And I think also one of the reasons why I like it so much may just be that connection to the earth. You feel the earth below you, and just having that whole time being connected, it definitely changes your mood. I have never, people ask me why I barefoot run, and my honest answer is I have never smiled so much while running as when I do when I'm barefoot running. Because usually when you see people running, they're not smiling.
No, they have looks of pain on their faces.
Yeah,
oftentimes.
exactly.
Yeah. Would you say that's also when you run, what would you say, mostly in nature, or how much on roads?
It depends. If I'm training for a race and I know one's coming up, I will do more road work, or if I'm lazy and I don't want to drive out to a trail. But lately I've been trying to hit more trails up just because it's completely different. It is a lot more work because you gotta get your feet a lot. Rocks just destroy them sometimes, and it takes a while, but it's totally worth it. And you're grounded when you run on sidewalks but I don't really like to run on sidewalks that much because they're so smooth.
Yeah.
And I'm training for longer ultra distances now, and smoothness doesn't really help me for those distances.
Right. I remember hearing that concrete is grounded, but asphalt is not.
Yeah, it's not. So now when I run on the road, I usually run on asphalt just because I see it as better training for my feet, because usually it's rougher. It's not.
Well, you have specific goals in mind. If someone was just doing this purely for health benefits, then would you say the trail running is probably the best option?
For health benefits, I would just say running barefoot. Get out there. You're going to want to starting barefoot, you're going to want to start on the street, I think.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I would say sidewalks just because they're smooth, and your feet do need to get used to that kind of, I'm not supposed to say friction because that's not a good word, but they have to get used to those pressures, those kind of surfaces. If you can get off the street get off the sidewalk and do the street, that's even better. Some roads are really, really bad. The worst road I ran was in Big Sur. I did the Big Sur Marathon, and I actually burned off a few layers of skin on my feet because the road was so bad, and the race was 26 miles.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about your races, but one other question that I'm sure you might get. Some people might be scared that the roads, especially if you're doing it on the road or the sidewalk, it's going to be very dirty, and there's some fears of glass, or there might be some parasites that can work your way into your feet or something like that. Do you have any worries about those or anything you do for it?
Actually, okay, so a good point you brought up was the parasites. I'm not really worried about that. I think I might have been worried about it before. Like when I first started, I had the same worries as everyone. What if I step on glass? What if I step in dog poo? That's a common one.
Yeah. Well, it's awareness training. You got to avoid these things, right? At the same time.
You are going to be looking down a lot more.
Yeah.
Ideally, you want to be looking ahead of yourself, or not straight down at the ground, because you want your head to be level. But you gotta learn that stuff, and you'll be looking down a lot more. And it does actually improve. I would say it improves hand-foot coordination hugely. But again, the parasites, I have never experienced a foot problem. I'm not commonly trying to run through dog poo. I don't think I've actually ever run through that. I think I've run through some duck poop, but
is there like any areas that you specifically avoid? Like, would you? I know a guy, Bobby, who's been to a number of our workshops, and he just got rid of his shoes completely. He never wears them, and he was traveling around through Tokyo and a whole bunch of things to get those grounding benefits and also the awareness, everything that we're talking about, not so much specifically the running, and he'd never had any problems from that. So
he just goes wherever?
Yeah, unless he has to go in a place that requires shoes, then he'll put Vibrams on, but other than that, it's completely 100% barefoot, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I really wish I could do that. There's not really anywhere I wouldn't run now. But it's going to be a little slow process. You got to build the mindset that it's okay to run, like on a hard trail or something, where before you'd be like, I could never do that. Well, you got to try it, and then eventually you'll see that you can do that. And as you develop that mindset, you'll be able to go anywhere. It takes a little bit. It is just a restricting mindset that. It's the tyranny of the shoes. They restrict your mind, not just your feet. They're protecting your feet, but they're also putting blinders on your mind to what you can actually do in your normal form. So, no, I go anywhere. If there's tons of gravel, I'm there. If there's glass, I don't try to run through glass, but it doesn't really stop me. One of the things I learned is a lot of the glass on the street, besides beer bottles, is automobile safety glass.
Mm-hmm.
And that glass is actually designed not to cut you.
Huh.
Because if you get in a car crash, that would be a little bad if the whole window shattered and you got cut to pieces.
Huh.
So it's not designed to cut you. I've only actually ever stepped on glass one time, and I've been doing this for over 3 years now. So the everyone worrying about glass and stepping on sharp things, it's kind of besides the point. If you're not looking down, you're going to step on stuff and it's going to hurt, but it's probably not going to even injure you.
Okay.
You just got to be aware. So I think, to me, that's a non-issue. Like,
yeah.
You just got to get out there, start doing it. And a lot of people are scared of pain and stuff, and pain's a part of life. Like, it's not
It's
permanent.
not really pain so much. It's just being uncomfortable, and
yeah.
by and large, our society is quite weak and underdeveloped, let's say, so they could use some uncomfortability, and I think this is a great approach to do it. You mentioned you've run some marathons barefoot. Can you tell us, what you've done and, how fast you run for the people that might be interested in that?
Well, I've never actually ran a marathon. I haven't ran a marathon my whole running career, and everyone's like, oh, Zane does marathons and stuff, and I'm like, actually, no, I don't. I've never done one. So last year I decided to change that because I was sick of saying, actually, I've never actually ran a marathon. And so I decided to do the Big Sur Marathon, which is, if you're a runner and you know about marathons, it's not really an easy one, especially for your first marathon. It's kind of a hard one. It's super hilly. There's actually a 2-mile hill in the middle of it, and it's really rough. I really think everyone should do it. It is one of the most beautiful races ever, right there on Big Sur. From Big Sur to like Pacific Grove or almost to Monterey. And I decided early on when I first decided to do it that I was going to do it barefoot just because I was 100% training barefoot, and I'm like, I'm not going to change that and run it in Vibrams or something, although I thought about it and I was really, really worried that I wouldn't be able to finish it because I had no idea about how the road was. And once you start running barefoot, like if you do races, that becomes a huge consideration, is like, well, what am I going to be running on? Because 26 miles is far, and you don't want to get halfway out there and then figure out that you can't run anymore and you're barely able to walk.
Yeah.
So I decided to do that. I actually scouted out the road. Unfortunately, I scouted out a smooth section of it when I was driving up to Santa Cruz once. So I was actually stoked and thought I could handle it. But I did the race. I did a lot better than I thought I did. I thought I would my goal was to beat 5 hours because it was such a hard race. It was, people are a lot slower there. And so I was just trying to beat 5 hours. I got 4 hours and 14 minutes. I beat my 2 friends that came to do the marathon, and they were wearing shoes. And I was 10 minutes behind another barefoot runner that had actually won a marathon before and had done multiple marathons barefoot.
Oh, wow.
So I was just stoked because I thought I did really good for my first marathon and being barefoot. So after that, a month later, I had my second marathon, which might not have been smart to go from one marathon to another that fast, since it was my first one. but I did the San Diego Rock and Roll Marathon, which is a way flatter course, thankfully. And the streets are a lot nicer to you, although they still were not super smooth sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
That one I got 3:47, I think is what I got. And since I've only done a couple races since then, I've been kind of taking a break, but I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to be doing some ultra marathons now. And those are usually more trail. Most of them are usually trail because they're so long. They just have to be on trails usually. So now that's why I'm picking up the trail pace. But right now, those are the two biggest ones. I've done barefoot, and like after the first one, I really could not believe that I had done that. It's still kind of dumbfounding to me that I was able to run 26.2 miles barefoot.
It's quite an achievement.
It's because just running a marathon with shoes is an achievement. Running it barefoot, I can't even believe I did that. So many people came up to me and were amazed. It was really awesome.
Yeah, I remember even just
running barefoot.
There aren't many people that do it. So.
Well, yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason. It can hurt. But one of the benefits, I think, of running barefoot, just in general, is the looks you get from people.
Yeah.
I really enjoy that.
Yeah. Yeah, even just running in the Vibrams when I did that wharf to wharf, most people don't do it and they think it's out of this world. So actually barefoot is just a whole nother step beyond that. So your training for these marathons or your average train, what does it look like? How much are you running in the week? Or is it all just long distance stuff? You mentioned you do some sprinting as well. How do you all put it together?
Well, now I'm at a point where I kind of do what I want. There's all those training plans to run marathons and stuff, and I've read those books. And at this point, I just do what I want. Usually I try and do one long distance one because when you do it barefoot, it changes everything. You can't, I know in CrossFit, and like the new thing is doing intervals and not even doing long distances to do a marathon, which I guess can work out for people. But when you're barefoot, you can't do like shorter distances to build up for a marathon. You really have to get up or at least get close to that race mark because you need your feet able to handle that distance.
Right.
So
it's more about the toughening of the feet and getting the muscles used to the fatigue rather than the conditioning aspect of it.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing actually is if your feet can't handle it, you're not going to finish the race. So you have to train your feet, and through training your feet, you're going to train for the marathon. Now, the thing with running barefoot is, and a lot of people complain, well, I'm going to be really slow. When you start out, you're a lot slower, and that kind of annoyed me when I first started out. But as you get better at it and you continue in your training, you'll actually become faster than you were. When I wear shoes now, which I've only done a couple times just to see how it went, I wore some Vibrams.
Mm-hmm.
I am terribly fast at any distance. Like, it's ridiculous. I've even considered doing a race in Vibrams just to see how fast I go. But a lot of universities, actually, they train barefoot, or part of their training is barefoot, and it actually builds up speed. It does help you improve your speed. So if you're looking for faster sprints and stuff, which I know you do hill sprints, right?
Mm-hmm. From time to time.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually training, doing runs barefoot and stuff will actually increase your speed.
Huh, interesting.
As you learn the form, it just, it's weird. It just naturally increases it. I'm faster than a lot of runners now just from running barefoot, and it definitely helps in races.
Huh.
But it is important. That is the thing. Train your feet. So my whole occupation now for race training is, can my feet handle the distance? The better they can handle the distance, the faster I can go in the race.
Mhm.
Is the only thing. So for my first marathon, I only actually got up to 20 miles. I think was the furthest I ran for it.
Yeah.
But once race day comes, you're all excited and stuff, and it's easier to push through pain.
Yeah.
And it was very painful at the end of the race.
Yeah. So your you mentioned before, barefoot running really helps you get you in tune with your body, which I do the same thing, and I'm always looking to better do that because I think that's going to allow you to, better control your body, get the best progress, avoid injuries and all that. So are you really listening to your body and especially your feet, I guess, when you're doing your training for how far you need to push it on a given day?
Yeah, actually, one of a really good thing is just checking your body when you're running. I do this a lot. I'll just check and see how everything's going, mentally check throughout my body, see if I'm running properly. That's, especially with barefooting, you end up doing that a lot, to be like, am I lifting my leg like with the least amount of energy, but am I lifting it and not pushing off? Again, am I like bending my knees? One of the best things to do is bending your knees, depending on what kind of terrain it is, if it's gravel and stuff, to actually be able to run through gravel. And I didn't say this before, you bend your knees. Naturally, you bend your knees when you run over sharper things, and that helps absorb the impact. So that's a constant thing, like, am I bending my knees enough? Am I absorbing the impact enough? Because if you're not absorbing the impact enough, it could lead to some foot injury or, like, foot attrition, which is going to limit your run eventually.
Yeah.
So, you check yourself a lot, and you just try and get into that flow. And when you are in the flow and you're barefoot, you definitely feel it. And it's just super fun. It becomes like a little game. And that's how you know you're doing good, is when you're just having the most fun of your life. At least for me. That's how it feels. And I want to emphasize, too, for everyone, that I don't just train barefoot. I do a lot of strength stuff, body.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask that right next. Yeah. You do like this sort of stuff. I teach kettlebells and body weight.
Yeah.
Because running, you're going very far with running because it's something that you love to do, and obviously there are some great health benefits, but to push it to that extreme level, especially if you're going toward the ultra marathon, that's like competing in powerlifting. Not necessarily, you have to make some sacrifices in order to do that, but overall, it's not a complete strength training program by itself, or fitness program.
I do a lot of body strength stuff. A lot of the stuff you do, of course. You helped me with that. I do a lot of gymnastics. Me and my older brother have done a lot of, I don't know, you've heard of this, but a lot of people might not have heard of this. It's called natural movement. It's based out, it's pretty much using your environment as your gym, and it's about moving efficiently, which is really nice for barefoot running because they really focus on efficient movements, efficient jumping, walking, running, climbing, efficient fighting, defense-related skills. So we do a lot of that, and we'll do it barefoot too, and it crosses over both ways.
Mhm.
Barefoot running helps that. That definitely helps barefoot running. But that's usually more or less the stuff I do. I do use kettlebells and stuff. And I'm not aiming for the super big, super strong thing. I mean, I leave that to you. But
Yep.
because my specialty is running, I'm not trying to get super big, but obviously I want to be able to defend myself if I have to, or push a car off of someone if I had to. Like, that's my goal in strength training, is to be functional.
Oh, exactly. You know, we all have our own specific goals and places we want to go. That's why I decided you have on the call. I mean, barefoot running's something I've played with a little bit, but it's not something I'm pursuing to the high level. So I want to thank you very much for sharing all this information. For anyone interested in doing it, I think it will really help them out, and maybe it will get some people interested in trying it that have never even thought about doing it before.
Uh-huh. Well, even
is there any...
I was going to say, even just training normally, like, just do it barefoot. And why not?
I'm all about that. Everything, I almost never have shoes on, pretty much regardless of what I'm doing when I'm doing my training. Any final words of wisdom or things you want to share with people?
I'm just going to say, again, if you really, really want to do this, take it slow and enjoy the process. People try and they're all about speed. They want to get the best PR time and stuff. And I've been learning lately, like, it's oftentimes you will get a really good PR time if you are just relaxed and you're having fun and your whole goal isn't the PR time. So just enjoy it. Don't take it too serious. Don't take life too seriously, I should say.
Well, that's great info, and after doing this, I kind of want to go do some barefoot running.
Barefoot running? I was going to say, next time I'm up there, we should probably go run in the forest.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Let's do it. All right, well, thanks everyone for listening. If you have any more questions in the future for Zane on barefoot running, what else he does, then be sure to let me know or contact him. You can find us both at supermanherbs.com. We'll have some more stuff from Zane. I think maybe getting you and Cloud on the call and talking about the natural movement at some point in the future would also be good. That is some fun stuff, and it'd be great to share with people as well. So thank you very much, Zane.
Thanks, Logan. Thanks for having me on the show finally.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thank you, everyone, for listening. That's going to do it for us here.